Well, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to St. Peter's. We are grateful to have this panelists, these group of young ladies who are proficient and know well what our topic is this evening. And our topic this evening is a roundtable concerning anti-human trafficking. And so, my name is Father Herb Bailey. My name is Herb Bailey. My title is Father, and here in this place it's Canon. So, if you're looking at information, it's Reverend Canon. You can call me Herb. Unless I owe you money, then don't call me. We have an opening prayer here. I'm glad you thought that was funny. Thank you. We have an opening prayer here, and do you all have an agenda? Does everyone have one? Does anyone not have one? I'm looking at that entire row that no one has a piece of paper in their hand. It's one piece of paper to serve you all. Patty is coming down with more pieces of paper. And the reason why, this is an Anglican church, and one of the marks of an Anglican church is our worship is something that's done together. I'm not just a talking head. We are doing this together, and so there are two prayers here, and I'm going to ask that we pray them together. You don't have to be super religious or any kind of religious to pray this. You can just read the words on the page and agree that these words are good. Yeah? All right. Everyone ready? You ready? Okay, good, thanks. Increase, O God, the spirit of neighborliness among us, that in peril we may uphold one another, in suffering tend to one another, and in homelessness, loneliness, exploitation, or exile, befriend one another. Grant us brave and enduring hearts, that we may strengthen one another until the disciplines and testings of these days are ended, and you again give peace in our time. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panel. And if you would like to say, I don't know, if you want to take 45 seconds and say a little bit about yourself. We have Rachel Buell. Yeah.
Is this on? Oh, it is on.
There it is.
So my name is Rachel Buell. I'm a sergeant at the Leon County Sheriff's Office. I run our human exploitation and trafficking unit. I've been over that unit for about almost the last 2 years, and I've been at the Sheriff's Office the last 19. When we go through the questions, I'll kind of explain the in and outs of our unit, but that's who I am.
Thank you. And we have Victoria Maines.
Is it working? I am the Northwest Region Human Trafficking Coordinator with DCF. I am from originally Panama City, but I cover Pensacola to Tallahassee. I have been with the department since 2012. I work with all of the verified victims of human trafficking, and thankful to our governor, now we can work with adults as well, so I am glad to be here.
Thank you. I have Robin Thompson.
Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center, or STAC. We've been in our community for going on 11 years now. I'm a lawyer by trade, but I've been working in human rights and violence against women issues, and in human trafficking particularly, for the last almost 25 years. And I guess that's kind of it. That's 45 seconds.
Thank you. We have Gwen Vrostek.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Gwen Verostek. I am the President and CEO at Capital City Youth Services and a proud member of St. Peter's here, so welcome to our beautiful cathedral. And at Capital City Youth Services, we have about 8 programs, different programs that we do, but one of the things that we encounter in multiple programs, and right now we have a joint effort going on with Robin's agency, with STAC, and that is to house survivors of trafficking. and to provide them case management and things like that. So I won't go into all of our programs, but we do service and see trafficking victims in almost every one of our programs. One of our specific other programs that is involving trafficking is our at-risk group home, which are youth that have either been trafficked and or they are at risk of trafficking. And that's a specific designation by DCF and by some federal laws that are in place. So anyway, thank you for coming and thank you for being interested in this very important topic. I think Deborah is next.
Deborah Harris?
Harris, the founder and executive director of Making Miracles Group Home, who is formerly now Making Miracles Haven. And we house homeless young women that are homeless in the community, some that we have housed over the years that have been trafficked or that's in that situation. We have been around since 2010.
Well, thank you. I have questions for you all. You have them as well. At any point that you change your mind and you don't want to answer a question, you can say pass. I'm just putting that out there for whatever. Just give that to you. Ms. Robin, check to make sure that mic is on.
Is it on now?
There it is.
Okay.
All right. Good, good. Well, good. Now that I'm talking to you, can you define for us human trafficking?
Sure, and full disclosure, I'm not going to give you the book and verse that's many, probably pages long in Florida law and in federal law, and just give you sort of the basics, which human trafficking is really the exploitation of one human by another human for the purposes of profit, power, and commercial gain or benefit. So if you think about ownership and exploitation of one person by another, it's that simple. The other important component of the law is that you have to have, the trafficker has to use force or some kind of fraud or some kind of coercion. And then the law breaks it down into labor trafficking and sex trafficking, with, of course, sex trafficking meaning any sort of what I just described, that kind of exploitation, and the use of any commercial sex act. We often think of prostitution, but it could be anything. It could be camming, it could be stripping, it could be any kind of commercial sex act. Or labor trafficking, which is often called forced labor. And really, that's any kind of work that you can imagine. Everything from working in factories or farms or being a nanny or housekeeper, somebody doing landscaping, working in restaurants. Really, it's any kind of often low-wage jobs where people are exploited for their labor. So that's, I guess, a sort of thumbnail and a quick overview of what human trafficking is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Victoria, what is DCF's definition of human trafficking as it pertains to youth?
So as Robin shared, in the criminal side of things with adults, you have to show the elements of force, fraud, and coercion. When we look at children that are exploited or trafficked, DCF's version is very different than law enforcement and the broad definition of force, fraud, and coercion. So any child that is engaging or asked to engage or offered or in exchange of anything for a sex act for a monetary value. So it doesn't even have to be something that actually is switched or given. It can be an offer in exchange. It can be an assumption. It doesn't have to be an object or an item. It could be a promise to provide a better life. It could be a promise to have dinner tomorrow night, go on vacation. It could be simple little things, but any child that is promised or offered or given or coerced to do something in exchange for a sex act or even the request of a sex act, the Department of Children and Families will verify that child for human trafficking. Labor trafficking is a little different. We do have to show some level of fraud or coercion, but again, it's a little more difficult. It's not just a child working or you know, because there are child labor laws, but taking advantage of those would a child could be verified for labor trafficking.
Thank you. Rachel, tell us about your agency's HEAT unit, H-E-A-T, HEAT.
Okay. So about 3.5 years ago, Sheriff McNeil formed what was then called the Special Investigations Unit with the primary focus of human trafficking. He threw 4 detectives and 1 sergeant in it and said, go conquer, but they didn't really know what they were expected to do. Human trafficking investigations were new to the area. They were new to the Leon County Sheriff's Office. So about 2 years ago, I took over and we ran as Special Investigations up until about 6 months ago. And we realized that there was a lot of crossover between our human trafficking caseload and our internet crimes against children caseload. So internet crimes, you're thinking cases that involve child sex abuse material, what's known as now or what used to be known as child pornography. And so we put together a proposal to the sheriff to merge the 2 units into one very large, very strong unit. So the Human Exploitation and Trafficking, or the HEAT unit, was created out of 2 units, and it is comprised of 6 detectives, hopefully 7 here shortly, myself, a criminal analyst that is dedicated to us fully, and 2 digital forensic analysts, which is basically just a fancy way of saying guys that are really, really good with all things technology. So phones and computers, and that's who we give all of our devices, because we seize a lot of computers and phones and tablets, and we give them to them and they do their magic thing in their little lab, and they come out with these great reports to say, here's everything that you've been looking for. So we are a full-time unit. We are on call 24/7, 365. Well, I'm on call 24/7, 365. My detectives get to share it. And we are also federally task force with Homeland Security. So we are actually housed at Homeland Security. And that gives us a little bit more room to work. If we were just under, you know, the sheriff's jurisdiction, our boundaries would stop at Leon County. Because we are federally credentialed through Homeland, we don't really have boundaries anymore. So.
That's awesome. How does it differ from a traditional detective unit?
So it's very different. Mostly, so let's take like a property crimes, right? Your car gets broken into, you report a theft from your car, that report goes to a detective to follow up on. We don't really get reports. We occasionally will get tips from Crime Stoppers or concerned citizens or whatever the case may be, but very rarely do we get a victim of human trafficking that comes forward and is like, I want to be a victim, here's my report, fix it. And so a lot of what we do is we create the cases ourselves. We run them through operations, so you'll see, when you see in the news, like the undercover operations where we're working out of hotels, that's our unit. When you see the predator ops where we're chatting with whoever, that's our unit. So a lot of our cases are self-created. A lot of them are from getting out and talking to people, referrals from NGOs like STAC or CCYS or IRC, whoever. And so we don't get cases handed to us. We don't get to come in on a Monday and here's 5 new reports for you guys to follow up on. The other thing that I think is different with us is we have to focus on our victim and survivor care, where your traditional detectives, your traditional criminal, investigative units, for the most part, they solve the crime and all is good. We go through the entire process, which is usually a very long process, and then we're still worried about where does our victim go to get trauma care, where are they going to live, how are they going to work, and all of these things that the average detective, and I don't say average to be mean, but just the other detectives don't have to worry about. So it's a much more time-intensive process, I think, for my detectives in the unit.
Awesome, thank you. Victoria. What do traffickers look like?
Is that a trick question? No, I'm
I know, right?
They look like all of us. Not that any of us in here are traffickers, but they are, you know, moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, doctors, lawyers, neighbors. Anyone can be a law enforcement, DCF workers. It doesn't matter where you are or where you've been in life. It can be any of us. And that's what's kind of scary for the young generation is you don't really know who you're looking at or who you're talking to in the first couple of months, because usually it's not that quick and it's a process. So they can be anyone.
Dang, I don't even like this question, but I'm going to ask it, and anyone can answer it. Who are the most valuable to sex? Vulnerable. Who are the most vulnerable to sex? Yeah, that's better. I'm glad you clarified it, because I was going to say so who's the most valuable? Who are the most vulnerable to sex and labor trafficking? That's a toss-up. Who wants to answer that question?
Rachel just said an at-risk population, which, yes, those that are homeless, have prior history of childhood abuse or neglect, sexual abuse, those that have financial instability, children that come from not a two-parent household, that have household dynamics that aren't your typical, like I said, two-parent household. It can be someone it's a hard question to answer. It can be someone that's educated, someone that's uneducated, a vulnerable person that is looking for a relationship or someone to be a companion with, a best friend. It doesn't have to be a sexual relationship. It doesn't have to start that way, at least. Someone looking for money, someone looking for to be free from a population or an environment that's not safe for them, or to come for education and think that they're going to get a new life and then they're labor trafficked. I mean, there's so many different vulnerabilities, and I would say no one is more vulnerable than the other, especially when it comes to children that we're seeing, especially in today's society in our region. We have a lot of children that come from what everyone would say is normal. You know, your two-parent households, both parents are educated, both parents work. Those are the children, just like everyone else, that are being trafficked now. So,
Robin, have you seen any trends regarding people in need and vulnerability to being trafficked?
Yeah, there have been trends, and just to build on what Victoria has said too, anybody with an unmet need is vulnerable to being trafficked. And we have seen nurses from the Philippines who are victims of trafficking. We've seen students on FSU's campus. We've seen people in every high school. It doesn't matter where that high school is. What is an unmet need to a youth, or another population that really is vulnerable are people with disabilities, vulnerable adults. Often we don't think about adults when you think about the issue of trafficking, but everyone is potentially a victim if you have that unmet need. And also what we see is traffickers are really experts at detecting that need, ingratiating or getting close to someone in order to groom them into a trafficking situation. And so learning intimate details about someone's life that really makes it more easy for the trafficker to control and harder for somebody to get out. When it comes to trends, and I did sort of self-confess that I've been involved in this issue for over 2 decades. I have to say that one of the biggest trends is, of course, online exploitation and abuse of children and adults. I think it was your colleague, Marina Anderson, who talked about how DCF has been seeing people who weren't even in the same room as each other in terms of the trafficking situation. We at STAG have seen trends, unfortunately now, among our immigrant populations, where our immigrant populations have gone into the shadows. So since our inception, at one point I think we had about half of our caseload were people from other countries. Now that's dried up because people are so fearful of coming forward. So one trend I see and I'm afraid of, frankly, for those who are being trafficked and exploited, is that that will become even worse for them. Because that means that the traffickers will be able to act with impunity because everyone is afraid to come forward for help like they used to come to agencies like STAC or to call LCSO or anyone else or call DCF because they're afraid of themselves or family members being deported. And they've been clear about that, and traffickers are most clear about that. And if you do come for help, you're going to be deported. That's one of the trends we've seen. We've also seen with the increases in, I guess, cuts to services by other nonprofits and community, and I know we've had the opportunity to meet Father about the ministries that happen in this church. But as your work is even more important than ever, we're seeing other nonprofits lose staff, lose funding, have unpredictable funding sources. So the places that the survivors we support would go to for housing, for substance abuse, recovery, for food, for other kinds of services, are seeing funding cuts. That means there's more vulnerability, and that means there's a field day for traffickers out there. So that's an unfortunate trend in these very uncertain times that we see the vulnerability of so many expanding. I guess those are two big trends that I've seen, and we at the same time have seen the need for our services grow. We just did our annual report. We've spent twice the amount of time that we spent in prior years assisting approximately 57 victims every year, which is a lot for a very small agency. So the need is growing and vulnerabilities are growing. So that's what I would say are the two biggest trends.
Thank you. Deborah, same question.
Okay. The trend I see is social media. A lot of girls going on there looking for a date, getting involved with guys because they feel like they don't have the love from, no one loves them. So they feel they stroll on these social medias and pick out these guys that's telling them what they want to hear, and they believe them. I've seen some of the girls have currently have boyfriends that they call their boyfriends. And the boyfriend, he's homeless, she comes in and gets shelter, and then he's calling her, telling, or when they out there, he start using the term we. You know, what we gonna eat tonight, where we gonna sleep, you know. So letting her know I'm in it with you, I'm okay with it, because you really don't love them, you love me, and I understand. So all that comes into play where they don't look at their being trafficked, they're looking at it as being in a relationship.
Gwen, you want to answer the same question?
Sure. I think these two ladies have.
Oh, wait, real quick, just when you're speaking to the mic, make sure you get the mic really close to your mouth so that we can hear you.
Robin and Deborah did a great job of answering that, but just two more trends that we see in multiple programs is the familial trend that I think statistically somewhere north of 40% of the trafficking cases are family members that are trafficking, especially the youth that are very vulnerable. And Deborah said it best. I mean, if I could say what is the one thing that's a consistent pattern of the kids that we see either in our shelter, in our at-risk group homes, someone that's coming in that's homeless, into our drop-in center, they don't feel loved by anyone. They don't feel like they're a part of anything, and they are so desperate to have somebody love them and somebody care about them and somebody take an interest. And so these traffickers see that. That's what they look for. And I guess the other trend from a trafficking perspective that we've also experienced in the shelter is that we get an awful lot of runaways. We'll get a child, that has run from Jacksonville or Orlando or somewhere in Georgia or wherever, and we will take them in because we are a safe place. We're a part of the Safe Place Network nationally, and we're the only emergency shelter anywhere in a pretty significant mileage from Panama City all the way over to Lake City is the next emergency shelter. So it's a pretty long distance. So I would say those would be some additional trends, but these ladies did a great job.
Thank you. Rachel, why don't I ask that question? Yeah, I'm skipping that one. No, I'll ask. Okay, Gwen, since you have the mic already, how do recruitment tactics differ when targeting children versus adults, specifically using online platforms?
Great question, and I think we answered it a little bit. Deborah and Robin both touched on it, but the kids, when they are posting photos of themselves or they're looking for experiences to do, they're all enamored with music or with modeling or with something that they think is going to be something very advantageous for them, and they see it through social media, all different varieties of their social media touch points. And so they post photos of themselves, or they take interesting photos of them. Traffickers are out there looking every moment for those things. So they'll pose as modeling agents, they'll pose as music producers, they'll pose as sports agents. What are the three big things? The kids, they think, I'll be a model, I'm going to be a famous NFL football player, I'm going to be a basketball player. And so traffickers will pose through social media as those things. They are very good at manipulating the youth through those media opportunities. They see it as the best way of getting in touch with these youth. And again, they can be they don't have to be in the same city. They can do it online. They can coerce a child into sending inappropriate pictures or having a relationship with somebody, and they offer them money in many cases through, get so many TikTok hits and you're going to make money. And boy, do those kids, we have kids come into our shelter and I'm amazed. They're 13 years old and they already have their own TikTok. They have their own pages and their own activities on these social media outlets, and they think that's going to be a way to make money. That's the way I'm going to get to be a model. That's the way I'm going to get attention of a music producer. So there's so many different ways, but social media is really a big one. And again, I think these guys already mentioned this, but the older boyfriends or girlfriends, because boys can be taken advantage of too. This isn't just a female phenomenon that occurs. They befriend them. I love you. It's the we. It's the us. They endear these kids. They'll hang around outside the high school and they'll offer them rides, and it starts that way. So there's just a lot of ways that they can, but social media is probably the biggest avenue that we're seeing right now, Father Herb.
Thank you. Rachel, what does trafficking look like in our community compared to how it's often portrayed I can remember movies as a child growing up, and I don't want to say they sensationalized it, but they sensationalized it. Like being a pimp was lauded, it was celebrated, it wasn't looked down on. So how is it different than reality?
So the media has kind of done us dirty. Taken, or Song of Freedom, was that the other one? I get it. The movies are entertaining, right? And they're exciting, and whatever the case may be. I cannot tell you how many times I get into, like the mom Facebook groups, right? Like Tallahassee Motherhood of 850 or Tally Moms or whatever the mom groups are on Facebook right now. And they're getting on and they're going, I was in Target and someone was following me around and they were going to snatch my kid and they were going to sex traffic my kid. And I'm sitting with my phone going, that's not, no. So that is not to say that kids don't get snatched. However, it's not by people wanting to traffic your child. Not in the United States. We're not talking different countries. In the United States, that's not really what sex trafficking looks like.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I grew up in the era of like stranger danger, right?
Yep.
And so I get it. It's ingrained in us to teach that, and there is still a level of truth to that. However, that's not what we're seeing in sex trafficking. And I could go into this big, long dissertation about how sex trafficking is a business and snatching children is not smart business for the traffickers, but that's neither here nor there. So locally, sex trafficking is looking like basically what they've described of, you know, the boyfriend or the person in their family, their parent, who says that, hey, you need to go make back the $200 that I just spent for your school shoes. Or, hey, it's also their dope dealer who's saying, hey, I know that you're after whatever the drug is, and the only way you're getting that is if you go do this for me. And so it's not as dramatic as TV or movies have made it out to be, or social media for that matter. I think there was one going around talking about something about a door handle. If you came to your car and there was something on the door handle, and I could probably spend every day, all day, like refuting social media things, because it's just, there's so many. And I think they come from a good place. I really do believe they come from a good place. My concern, and probably all of our concerns, is if this is what the public and society thinks trafficking is, when it actually happens, they're not going to recognize it. They're not going to recognize it in high schools. They're not going to recognize it at massage businesses that they go to. They're not going to recognize it in restaurants, and they're not going to recognize it in hotels. So if they think it's this dramatic, sensationalized thing. So it's definitely very much happening locally. It's just not what you're seeing on TV.
So I'm looking over these questions. I have these questions, and some of them are almost repeats, and you guys have handled a lot of these already. Does anyone else want to speak to that? Yeah.
I really want to really emphasize what Rachel is saying as so important, because there are few things and few areas of life where we've done public awareness and education and have had to help people unlearn, not just learn, but unlearn what you've seen on social or in the movies, like we have with trafficking. And it's not, the phenomenon hurts with people like you and me who want to try to report it to get someone connected with law enforcement or services. But the survivors, the victims themselves, don't see themselves as being trafficked because of all of the misinformation out there. And when they don't see themselves as trafficked, or they think, oh, that's not me, and we've certainly seen this where folks have said, no, that's not me, I'm not one of those women, or that's not me. It's doing a great disservice because they're not getting help. So it's really a great thing that everybody's here tonight to learn more. And I wanted to, if I didn't forget it, we've all got materials in the back, and I just wanted to encourage everyone to try to take some of these materials home. So that you can, thank you, Deborah, so that you can learn more too about this. The other part is that sometimes people just think, oh, trafficking can't happen to me because of, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, because I do have a roof over my head, I have two parents, I have whatever, or I'm well off. But really, any unmet need is going to be targeted by a trafficker. And it is not the sensationalized things you see on social media. The one about the zip ties on the door handles, the other one about the fentanyl-laced tissues on the door handles. Please, I'd ask you, if you all see any of that on social media, don't share it, because it's wrong. And there are resources here on this panel that if you have a question of whether this is trafficking or not, please reach out to a creditable, competent entity to just kind of get the record straight.
I appreciate that. I'm a father of 4 girls, and I've got 3 younger sisters, and so like those things I see and I hear, and that gets me kind of like, I want to be overprotective, and I can't be there all the time to protect them, and so those are things that I'm I see and I'm like, oh, okay, well, if somebody puts $1 on your, underneath your windshield wiper, don't, I mean, like, right, I mean, have you seen these things? Yeah, all right. Huh. Okay, so Rachel and Robin, in our community, are you seeing people internationally involved in trafficking? And if so, where are they coming from?
Weird question. So yes, they're not being trafficked like to other countries. Like, are there people that are not U.S. citizens and from other countries being trafficked within Leon County? Yes.
Okay.
Where are they from? I mean, that's hard. All over the place. We've got two major cases right now. Is China, speaking nothing but Mandarin, and then a lot of your Latin American countries, your Hispanic countries. We're seeing a lot out of there as well.
So so personal note. This is where I get in trouble because I move away from the script, and my wife always tells me not to. But I also, I'm a big guy, I work out. I was talking to your husband about working out, and the idea of going and getting a massage is great, but now I'm like super nervous about going to any place to get a massage because I'm afraid that I'm gonna get caught up in, you know what I mean? Like I am innocently going in to get a massage, and then the cops bust in and they arrest me so now I'm stiff and sore because I don't know where to go.
So I would be lying if we said we weren't looking at a dozen or so in Tallahassee. One made the news recently where we arrested 2 for human trafficking of a employee that was flown here from New York. She thought she was getting a legitimate job. She spoke no English, got here, and they're like, oh, surprise. Actually, there's other things required of you. She was not a fan. She was not allowed to leave. She was forced to stay within the business. Another employee was kept there overnight with her to make sure she didn't leave. And then she was beaten up and made a run for it after she was beaten up and went a couple businesses down and said, I need help. How she did that, because when I tell you she speaks no English, it's none. But she got her message across to the nice ladies that worked in the business 3 doors down, and that kicked off a very big investigation into that business. So my recommendation would be to stick to massage businesses that have been around for an extended period of time with good reputations, maybe in like legitimate health spas, and not necessarily massage businesses that are changing names 5 times in the last 10 years, and all they do is like they're in a shopping. I'm not trying to profile it.
It's reality.
It's reality.
So what I'm going to do is
The
I'm going to give you a list.
The massage businesses that are sitting in a shopping center and they look kind of sketchy. Their windows are covered, and you go in and you see what we call a table shower. It literally looks like a table with like a handheld shower head. Like, there's something about it. You may not be able to put your finger on it, but you're like, no. Yeah. So there are lots in Leon County that are perfectly okay. Google will tell you a lot because the ones that are doing illicit business aren't hiding it. So you can Google a lot of these places and start reading reviews, and people that are getting other services are saying it's great, and I give it 5. So it's out there.
That's helpful.
So yeah, I think I answered that
that's
as delicately as I could.
Deborah, you want to say something?
There you go.
Angel, go get certified and give him a massage.
Angel's my wife, in case you're, all right. Go, yes.
The other part about the internationally involved in trafficking part, I wanted to mention that a lot of the clients that we have had who are from other countries are from a lot of Latin American countries. Also, they have come here, and a lot of people don't realize this, that people from other countries arrive in our country with visas that expire, and that makes them vulnerable. They aren't coming through the southern border. Like if you look at the news sometimes, you think that's only, people who are coming through the southern border are the people who are being trafficked across the border. That's not true. One study had 40% of the people who came to our country from other nations who were trafficked came through airports. We got a call one time from these people that were in the Fort Lauderdale airport, and they said someone was supposed to pick them up in Tallahassee, from Tallahassee, and they were flown and then they were abandoned. We figure that maybe word got out to the authorities and everybody scattered to the winds, and they were just abandoned at the airport at FTL. So, or FLL, we're from down there. So that's another thing to think about, that it's not just people who are undocumented who are trafficked, but it might be they're not documented because their visas have expired. Traffickers are very wily. In fact, someone called our H-2A, H-2B visa program, which really ties people to an employer. They call it legal trafficking, just kind of as an aside, because there is the potential for abuse in some of the legitimate visa programs, because the worker can't leave the employer when they come in under certain visa programs. So I guess one of the things that we are always asked too is how do you know what a trafficking situation looks like in those circumstances? One of the things is, what kind of agency does the person have, from whether they're from another country or from here. But if someone is here on a legitimate program and yet they can't call home when they want, they don't have access to their documents, they see other forms of control by the person that they're being trafficked by or controlled by or employed by, those are also signs that there are abuses even within documented immigration systems.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, hold
and
their
that's actually a federal trafficking crime, is the retention of identity documents and passports. So that's another crime. And trafficking is a crime of many crimes too. That's the other part.
Sure.
We're acting and talking a lot about just the specific act, but I'm talking out of my hat a little bit. But Rachel knows. I mean, it could be anything from money laundering to identity theft, in addition to every range of violent criminal act that's perpetrated by traffickers, in addition to, the Florida law.
So here's a question, Rachel, because you just mentioned, how do you differentiate between consensual sex work, if that's a thing, exploitation and trafficking when you're doing investigations?
So it gets a little tricky. The easiest way to explain it is sometimes we run operations out of hotels, victim identification operations. So we are posing as sex buyers to have the women, or sometimes men, but mostly women, come to us. And really it's not for the purpose of arresting them. It's for the purpose of identifying if they're in need of our help, whether that be services or investigation into their actual trafficking situation. And we do come across some young women who are appalled at the idea of giving someone their money. And they are, I started explaining them as sole proprietors, just because that was the easiest way for me to explain it to people, is they do work for themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not in need of services. That doesn't mean that, they're not falling prey to other situations. But unless they are being forced or coerced or fraudulently made to do these things, they're not being trafficked. And so some of these women, and we run into some of the same women. Like, we've run into them multiple times at some of these operations, and it's like, okay, we met you 6 months ago. You told us you weren't being, you're not a victim of trafficking. Do you still feel that way? Have your circumstances changed? What may the case be? And so really, it's hard because, I think everyone on this panel has said, a lot of our victims don't want to be victims, or they don't see themselves as victims. They legitimately don't believe they're victims. We've got one juvenile victim that I think her and I went around and around for probably an hour, because she does not believe she's a human trafficking victim. Now, I know she is. Everyone on this panel knows she is, that has met with her or dealt with her. But she has this idea in her head of trafficking. And she's like, you know, quote, ain't no one beating me. And I'm like, yeah, but like there's other things happening. Like I know what these things are. I've seen the evidence. She doesn't view herself as a victim. And so it's very, very hard to help these women when they don't see themselves as victims. So you have to almost do like a very delicate dance. Victoria got very creative in working with her, and I don't remember how you worded it to her. But.
So just to share a little bit, I will never be a victim. I am like most of these victim women, survivors, and so the mentality of I don't want to be a victim it's real. It means you're weak, and that's what these girls and women have said. It means you're weak. It means you're allowing others to take advantage of you. It means you can't take care of yourself. It means you can't protect yourself physically. And so one of the girls we have recently, first I want to say, if you're not 18, you can't consent to sex work. So I want to get that off the table. A lot of our children say, well, I met him online and I went there and I wanted the $20 and I did this. That's great, but you are not 18 and you cannot consent. So sadly, for our children, it's hard for them to understand that. And so with the child that Rachel was speaking about here in Leon County, she grew up in familial trafficking, meaning her mom was trafficking her. Her mom was what she called a prostitute. Her mom, and this was not in Tallahassee at the time. She lived somewhere else. And so she grew up with this lifestyle of, I see my mom selling her body for money. I'm doing it now because this is what I'm supposed to do at this age, and so it's okay. I'm not a victim. And so how we got through Rachel and her discussion of being a victim is every single one of us in this room have skills, right? We are very good at something. Some of us are good at cleaning. Some of us are good at cooking. Some of us are good at labor. Some of us are talented in artwork. Whatever you're good at, your trafficker, your boyfriend, your parent, the person that is taking advantage of you is going to prey on what you're good at. So how I explained it to her is, you have skills, right? You can survive on the street. You're not 18. You can survive on the street. You can find food. You can find shelter. You can find housing. And any guy that beats you up, you can assault him back. Like, you can do a better job taking care of yourself than DCF could, than your parents can. So we looked at it from a skill set. You have got a skill set, and they've exploited that. They're taking advantage of it because he is sitting back at the hotel or in another room, clicking the remote, smoking his weed or blunt, whatever everybody wants to call it now, and you are physically using your body to make money. And then when you go back to that room and you guys are gonna smoke together or have a drink together, you just shared half your money with him, or more than half of your money with him. And so it's not, again, when you look at trafficking, it's not a physical pull from one person to another. I can sit here and tell Rachel she has to go do X, Y, and Z, and then we're gonna come back and be best friends. And when she comes back with the money and I take it, I've exploited her. I've trafficked her because I've taken advantage of her skill set. So showing these women, girls, teenagers, men, boys, whatever, their skill set, identifying what's good about them, then they start to see, oh my gosh, you're right. I can get on a pole. I can spin around, and they're taking advantage of it. Or, I can dance, or I can go on a date with you, and I can dress up beautiful. A lot of these girls and women are absolutely stunningly beautiful. You will never know it because they have to maintain that because that's their skill set. Rachel has one more thing.
I just thought about this while she was talking.
Thank you.
So, in the world of trafficking, and your traffickers are your pimps, the stereotypical pimp, which is dubbed a gorilla pimp, so like one that's
Dubbed a
beating
what?
gorilla pimp.
Gorilla print.
So it's one that physically beats the girls to get them to do what he wants them to do. Okay. That is not as common as you would think. And just putting it bluntly, it's because you don't damage the merchandise you're selling.
Sure.
Like So Romeo pimps are what we see more of. It's the sweet talking. It's the I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to put a roof over your head. We have one case with one of our girls who she's been trafficked by a couple different traffickers throughout the years. And if you look at the conversations that she has had with them, it's always one going, you're staying in that crappy motel in Panama City. I'll put you on the beach in a resort. And so it's that step up, and it's the sweet talking of I'm going to take care of you, and you're not going to have to work as hard. And like, oh, you had to make $1,000 a day with him. Like, I'm not going to do that. You don't have to work as much with me. Like, you only got to make 500 today. Or so and this probably goes under the misconceptions, but it made me think about differentiating. We don't see, that's not to say that they don't beat on these girls, because they do, but it's not their main way of getting these girls to do what they're wanting them to do. We see a lot more of the coercion, the sweet talking, the withholding of drugs. One girl that we had, she's clean now, she's doing wonderfully, but her whole thing was she was addicted to fentanyl, and her trafficker was also her dope dealer, and he knew that, and he would withhold the fentanyl until she was so dope sick that she would do anything to get that. And so he would withhold it and go, cool, go go have these 5 or 6 dates, and then I'll give you your fentanyl. And so she did it. And so it wasn't the fear of force or physical violence, it was withholding drugs. So.
Sorry, Rachel.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
You've like sparked a match over
I know,
here.
we're going back.
So there's just one more thing. She talked about the gorilla pimp, which is violent and aggressive and may wear a big, tall, furry purple hat with a cane and a cloak like we used to see back in the day. Yes. But then we have the Romeo pimp, which is like your boyfriend that you like or that you love, that you want to have a relationship with, that you want to please, that you want to show him how much you can bring to the table or to the relationship because you want that love. And then the last one is I just lost my thought process, totally. Gang trafficking. So this has become also very big in, everywhere has gangs, okay? Tallahassee has gangs, Panama City has gangs, Pensacola has gangs. But I would say in the Northwest region, we've seen, even on to Jacksonville, we've seen a lot of gang trafficking. And what that looks like is most gang members throughout the years have sold guns and drugs, right? They sell guns, they sell drugs. Once they sell the gun, it's gone. It goes to the next dealer or the next buyer. The drugs, they're used. So once you sell it, the person uses it, it's over. You don't make any more money off that. These gang members now are making money off their moms, their sisters, their kids, their girlfriends, because now they can sell that female or male, doesn't matter, they don't care, multiple times. So over and over and over in one day. I sold a gun once today. I'm not gonna make any more money off that gun. But if I sell Rachel or myself over and over, it's a multi-million-dollar business, and these gangs are making a killing off of it. And they're seeing, back in the day, and I don't know, some of you are older, some of you are not, but there was this loyalty, right? Like if we're in a gang, you don't mess with my brothers and sisters, I don't mess with your brothers and sisters. That is all out the window. If you are a human body that's able to make money, you're on the table for that gang. And we've seen a lot in Panama City recently with the gangster disciple groups or affiliation. Yep, and so now they're called growth and development, but we have seen, that's what they say. But we have seen a lot of them where they are forced to marry, like let's say they go to, their boyfriend, their main pimp, goes to jail. He's gonna be in prison for 15, 20 years. She is forced to legally divorce him and marry the person under him to make the person that she was married to before make money while he's in jail. So she has to marry them because that's their legal tie to her. And so we have seen a lot of that in the Northwest region, and as far as Jacksonville, we've also seen a lot of human trafficking involving gangs involving shootings and murders of children. And so now our moms that are victims of sex trafficking, their kids are getting shot. And it's happened here in Florida And it's terrible, and that's how they manipulate the men or women with their children, through the gang violence.
I want to ask you what challenges you're facing, Rachel, but I feel like you've listed plenty of them. Is there anything that you haven't?
Yeah, I could use more bodies and more resources. No,
Wait, stop. Say that again.
I think we did cover a lot of them.
You could use more.
We
bodies
could
and
use more bodies, which I am grateful, because we do have the largest investigative unit out of all the units at the sheriff's office. So I'm not complaining. I promise.
The only human trafficking unit in the Northwest region, Bay County and Escambia County, are the two other larger agencies, sheriff's offices. They do have assigned human trafficking investigators, but it's one or two. And they do other cases like child crimes or violent crimes. But as far as Rachel, her unit is the only one that focuses on solely trafficking.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. Sheriff McNeil.
Rachel, do you take volunteers?
Yes.
To some degree. We are very protective about the integrity of the investigations, but what we do, you know, and I know we all talk about it pretty frequently, of wanting more help and more resources and more money and more places to put victims or survivors, or, you know, but really I think we already covered the majority of the difficulties is really victims.
They don't have a clue what it is.
They don't know what it is, and they don't want to be victims. There's misconceptions among, you know, the public. There's misconceptions among law enforcement. I have those arguments quite frequently about what human trafficking actually is. So, yeah, I think that's. I don't want to keep talking.
I think it was Harriet Tubman that said that that all the slaves that she had freed, she would have freed more if they had known that they were enslaved.
Well, and why would you be a slave if you love the person you're doing something for?
Right.
Right.
So it's just kind of like modern day slavery. We could put that in kind of the same category for sure. For sure. Gwen, you going to say?
Well, Rachel and we had a meeting in my office about 2 weeks ago, and one of the things we do need in this area, because we really don't have, I mean, Deborah's got she's got one home, she's trying to get her second one up and running with staff. We need some safe houses in this area, because we really don't have a lot of places that we can put either youth or adults into a safe place for them to get them away from their traffickers. So if there's a need, that is another need that we have in the community.
Those of you who are listening, I hope you're listening. Gwen and Deborah, what are you encountering in your work with youth and young single mothers?
Well, I think we talked about a lot of the things, but with our youth, we've seen a good many cases come in, and they can be either timeout kids that come in, maybe a parent is just had it with the child and they bring them in they say, I want to bring them in for the 14 days I need a break, or they're DCF children. They come in and they have been handled by their families. A lot of them are truant. They're not going to school because maybe they're not even being sex trafficked. They're being really human trafficked because they're staying home from school and not being allowed to go to school because they're taking care of 3 other children of maybe their own family or maybe other families. And again, they're getting some money, but most of the money is going to their parents.
Yeah, and that's still exploitation.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in terms of the young mothers, many times they'll become pregnant as a very young child. We've got a mother right now, was I think
14?
14.
Yeah.
And she's with us and doing well, but she was out of school for 3 years. You can't catch up from that, guys. It just doesn't happen. So truancy is really a big signal for us to say what's happening in this child's life, and there's much more scrutiny being weighed on us from a Department of Juvenile Justice now about truancy, and they're supposedly, we used to have truancy judges, and I almost wish we had them back because it's a big indicator for kids that are being used to do other things like being trafficked, either labor or human. And again, the young mothers, sometimes they're having the children of their traffickers, or if they've been being trafficked, it's, they become pregnant and they don't have the resources, and sometimes their trafficker won't let them go. They won't pay for an abortion. They either, and they say, have a child. Some have had multiple children, and we've had trafficking cases. We have one mom that we've been helping for years, and I think she's now has 4 children, all from different fathers. Some of the fathers, she doesn't even know who the father is of these children because she became pregnant from being trafficked. And so you just have to do a lot of hand-holding. And it's very complex because many times we'll get a young mother that her child, she's been sheltered by DCF, and her child's been sheltered by DCF, but she wasn't allowed to keep the child with her. And so it's difficult. It's difficult. Many of them want to be the mom. They want to take on that mom role. But number one, they don't know how because they're so young themselves. And then it's very difficult for all of us as agencies to then get that mom, that baby, that child together so that they can bond, so that they can be together. Kathy is here with us from Safe Families. They do an awful lot of good work around keeping the children and then making sure that the moms or the parents can become, and it's mostly women that can be involved in the children's lives. But I'll let Deborah tell you about her lady. She's actually got her
real quick, Kathy, you want to join us? Are you free to join us now? Because I have questions for you. I just didn't. I know you were taking care of a child earlier. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say before Deborah goes, the mom that, we are looking for a host home for that mom and child so they can be reunified. And, those are the kinds of things where if because I'm the average citizen, I am not the professional that these ladies all are. We really are grassroots, but that's something anyone can do, is to open their home to one of those folks who's received the care and the trauma-informed, wraparound services, and now is ready to start having some kind of normalcy. And as people of faith and people of peace, that's something we can do, is open our homes to some of those folks who've never experienced a true home. I've had children who stayed at my house and have never sat together as a meal. And then I've also had, and that's what Deborah will speak to, because she does a beautiful job of having a home-like environment and really showing for the first time, this is what a home looks like. This is what love looks like. This is what safety looks like. And I'll let you go from there.
You tell it all. I was looking at this and I was thinking on my perspective of young single mothers, what I see over the years, that young girls come in, they're pregnant. Most time they don't come in unless they're getting close to deliver, or sometimes if they can find somewhere to stay. They're pregnant, they're walking around, they're going to find somewhere to stay. They're going to stay with cousin, brother, sister, somebody. Then once they go to the hospital, it's like the table turns. It's like, okay, I can't go here, there with a baby. Number 2, I can't leave this hospital unless I have a place to go.
Yeah.
I have to have an address. I have somewhere to go. Then that's when it comes to looking for a place like Making Miracles. That way mom and baby can come instead of taking the baby and mom is left alone, which makes her vulnerable to go back to the streets. And, I know we say trafficking, but what I see some of the young girls is it's a form of living.
Right.
For them.
It's normal.
It's
for them,
normal.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's normal. It's a form of life. They go out there and make money for themselves, and sometimes a lot of baby daddies are in jail, and they send money to support them while they're in jail. So it comes, like I said, like you were saying, some of them don't really understand they're being trafficked.
Right.
They just think it's a way of living.
It's very hard to hear that you've been trafficked when that may be the only relationship that you've had, and now you're saying it's not what you think it is, but you're hanging on to that because I think it goes back to...
You come a little closer.
I think it goes back to the relationship. That's what people who are vulnerable to trafficking are, especially sex trafficking or trafficking in the U.S. versus another country, very vulnerable because it's that relational element that they don't have and that God created us for. You know, we have that innate need for relationship, and so that's how they're manipulated for sure.
Kathy, I have a question for you since you're here now. Thank you. What are some of the gateways that you've seen for victims in trafficking? What are the primary risk factors that make children, especially youth in foster care, those experiencing homelessness or those with mental health issues, particularly vulnerable to traffickers?
I mean, everybody up here talked about it, but I think it is that just never have, you know, science is backing up what the Word of God says, that, you know, our bodies, our minds, our spirits were made for a relationship. And if we didn't experience safety in relationship, you know, our nervous system is dysregulated.
Yeah.
Our understanding of attachment is dysregulated. And so I think that's the number one thing. So when we talk about prevention, you know, we have to be hospitable, we have to be loving, we have to make ourselves available for relationship with people who are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not just write a check, not just because, you know, Rachel and Victoria and Gwen and Robin are all doing their part, but until we as people in our community open ourselves up to relationship with the most vulnerable, we are making the problem worse. We're making their vulnerability worse because we are who are the safe people, right?
Yeah.
We are the people who need to come around those folks with love, show them that there is safety with people in their community because they don't believe it, you know, until they experience it.
Yeah.
And realize as those people, you know, especially children, but realize as those people, we also have to be ready for stops and starts. You know, we are not going to see Hollywood endings. There's something in the water this week because Deborah can attest. We had a few of our most vulnerable folks who were living with her and a couple who weren't living with her kind of try to blow it all up. And, you know, and that's what you see. They go so far and then it's really scary. It's scary to go to a normal life. It's scary to have everything quiet and routine and ordered. That's all scary because they've never experienced it and they're entering into the unknown. Whereas for all of us, it's safety. Like we would hate living in the chaos they've lived in, but when you only know that, that's what's safe. And so you see, you know, the day before, I mean, not to throw anybody under the bus, the day before you start a new job and you have you're just like gonna start talking about bananas and oranges and like say I'm leaving, I'm going on the street, I'm taking my kids and living on the street because that's chaos and that's familiar.
Yeah.
And so it takes people, and these folks have to move on to the next case, not that they don't care, but that's where we all can come in and say, okay, we can be there for that before they're back on the street, before they're vulnerable again. And that's what the average person can do. You know, and just make ourselves available for that.
I wish this panel was, I wish my sermon Sunday could be this panel. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's not kosher for St. Peter's, but I really do because this idea of being available and I hear Jesus saying, when I was hungry, thirsty, when I was the most vulnerable, you cared for me. And when you didn't do that, you didn't care for me. And this idea that that's actually the highest level of love is when I'm loving people the way I've been loved by Christ. And so if I'm missing that, I'm missing an entire chunk of what it means to follow him. So in the midst of this, and we're only an hour and 15 minutes in, I just want to, I know, right? We still have 45 minutes left. I want to applaud you, and this is also give you a moment to take a break. We have restrooms on the left and the right at any point that you want to get up and stretch your legs. This is not a light topic by any stretch of the imagination. And so if you feel like you need to wiggle, please wiggle. Don't try to hold it in, because then you'll miss something because you're already full, right? So shake it down. Is that fair? Yeah, legitimate. Robin, can you talk a little bit about labor trafficking? And when you see people who are, labor trafficking. We're moving down, halfway down the page, in case you're wondering where we are.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and we have talked a lot about sex trafficking, but it's almost like a false separation, because if you think about whether it's sex or labor, it's somebody exploiting someone for some kind of work. Yeah. It is an exploitation of someone's skills, as was described. Labor trafficking is different in a way of when you think about non-sex forced situations and trafficking. When I'm thinking about some of the survivors of labor trafficking, what keeps them going, and these are people that might have been trafficked to our area after Hurricane Michael to help clean up some of the debris in Bluntstown or fix roofs. It might be somebody who is convinced to bring his family to this country to work for an HVAC system, a business. And then when he got here, he realized all bets were off and he was going to instead be exploited. Somebody who's on our board now, Samir Jain, was brought to this country under a visa to work as a controller in Kansas City. He was educated and skilled in business, but when he got to Kansas City, his trafficker said, "Oh, no, that's not the job that I want you to do. Instead, I need you to work in my restaurant." And then he wouldn't pay him. And that was after also Samir brought his wife, Upna, and their son to, and then the trafficker exploited them in the restaurant. And they were petrified of being not just deported, but being sent to a detention facility. That's how he controlled them. And then also, this is what I see with survivors of labor trafficking, is they are such hard workers. They usually come here for the intention, or they're working for a job, whether U.S. citizens or from another place. They're really hard workers, and often the traffickers take such advantage of them because they have already been told they have a debt. You're living in this place, I'm transporting you back and forth to the fields or the factory or whatever, and you're incurring an even greater debt. And the people who are being trafficked are people of honor. And they're saying, I need to pay my debt. I signed a contract. And maybe if I work harder, the boss will pay me sooner. And so they got, from the victim's perspective at that point, they're saying, if I only do this better. It's almost like what you see in domestic violence relationships when the victim is saying, oh, if only I get, the food on the table in a different way, or if only I do that, I will escape the harm that this person is threatening me with. We see that with labor trafficking. We see debt associated, as I said, with labor trafficking cases and sex trafficking cases, but especially with labor trafficking. Traffickers bring people to this country, or they make them incur a debt that can be upwards of $30,000 just to come to the country and start working. And then they keep charging more and more. Often the traffickers know intimate details about the victim's situation, the labor trafficking victim, if they're brought here or from another part of the country. So they threaten if you complain, if you don't do what I say, then your daughter is dead, your sister is dead, I'm gonna do other things to harm you or people that you love. So the same kinds of threats go with sex and labor trafficking. Another thing to mention factually is that there is more labor trafficking in our world than sex trafficking. Really, when you think about the abuses that can occur. And I've gotten calls from people who were on construction crews when the Duval Hotel was being built, labor subcontractors who were exploiting. And mind you, not everyone on the job site was a victim of trafficking. Only some are. And so by looking, you won't know that someone is being labor trafficked. I just finished doing 2 training sessions with our property appraiser's office. And guess why we're training property appraisers? They get to go inside all of these homes, or at least take pictures on the outside to appraise the value, and they go on private property all the time to see if there's any exploitation of labor or sex, but mostly labor happening, and that can happen in any of our agricultural areas, et cetera. So it's helping people to be able to see where there's been some agency. The other part about labor trafficking that I need to emphasize too is that we have something in our state called third-party contractors or labor subcontractors. And that's where a lot of the abuse happens. Has anybody heard of the Sandestin Hilton Hotel, just west of here? So at one point, they were not hiring anybody to clean one room, but they were hiring a subcontractor to bring people over to work in the hotels. And it was that subcontractor who was trafficking the victims. One of the most notorious cases in our state was the Ramos case down in Southwest Florida, where a federal judge actually said point blank, I wish I could go after the grower, but I can't, because the only people I see as liable and that are doing the deed of exploiting and trafficking these workers was the Ramos brothers, the labor subcontractors. So we see a lot of abuses happening like that. It's hurricane season. I'll tell you, that's where we saw both a victim of sex trafficking and labor trafficking, because traffickers take advantage of situations where there's a crisis. We saw it explode in different ways during the pandemic. It also happens after there's any kind of natural disaster and people are desperate to have roofs repaired and debris cleared or anything else. One of the people that we helped was a man who was trafficked from the Midwest as part of a labor crew to fix roofs and clear debris. And the trafficker never let him do laundry, take a shower, and the guy had a leg injury that got really badly infected, so much so that he couldn't work. And what happens in some of these cases too is the labor contractor treats people as expendable, as commodities. That's another way to think about trafficking, is they commodify people into property. And so he didn't care. The guy was able to escape. He came over here to the Kearney Center looking for help, and then we discovered a small labor trafficking crew that came to fix those roofs and definitely helped him and tried to find out more about the other victims. But that's another thing to think about, that you can see sometimes workers in situations where they might be living at the workplace. It could be a massage establishment, but it could be a restaurant. You see cots in the back of a local restaurant, you know, something's not quite right. You know, you might see people who are arriving super early, never leaving, maybe stealing food on the job site or complaining about not being paid. Our advocate, Graciela, is at the Kearney Center every Wednesday, and she asks questions of people and just starts talking to them. If somebody says, they said they'd pay me, they haven't paid me for 2 months now, red lights go off. And then you think, well, what else has been happening? Well, you know, and then they start to tell their story, and we might find somebody who's labor trafficked that way. It's hard. It's hard to detect these cases. Very few of them are prosecuted, are there investigations and prosecutions compared to sex trafficking, because they're harder cases. But we've certainly seen the victims. I'd say about 1/3 of our population that we've assisted has been labor trafficked. The other thing I'd say is that people are often sex and labor trafficked. If someone is, say, in a hotel and forced to have sex and is sex trafficked, they might also be forced by that trafficker to clean the rooms or do repairs. I was listening to a webinar one time where a woman was forced to dance in a strip club, and also she was the bookkeeper. So she was doing the labor of bookkeeping. So know that it can be both. And then on another kind of, I want to flip the coin, when we see women, especially women and children who are labor trafficked, we often see them as being victims of harassment and sexual violence. So a woman who's picking tomatoes by day might be being raped by the crew boss at night. And see that submission as part of the condition of their labor. So that's a not short answer.
No.
But there you go.
There was a case last fall where we had a hotel in town, had no running water, had no electricity, but they solicited homeless families. There were a bunch of families in this place. There were also single men and single women in there, but there was sex and labor trafficking going on in this place. And they were using child labor to repair some of these rooms, using the labor of the residents that they had lured in there. And again, they weren't paying them, but they were holding it over their head, but we're giving you a place to come in and at least get a roof over your head. We know there's not running water, and we know there's not electricity, but you've got a roof over your head. And we went into that place, there was black mold, it was just an unbelievable situation. And it ended up, and again, these were traffickers. This was their plan, to get people that were very vulnerable. And I think, I forget how many families we had in there, but it was a number of families that were, I think it was about 16, but it was just an unbelievable situation. But it happens right under our nose, right in a nationally named hotel. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, is the state, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but there's still no mechanism for bringing children into foster care who are not legal citizens. Is that still the case? I know it was the case at least a year ago.
Mic check.
The governor's executive order that came down several years ago was that any child that is from another country that comes into our country that is without a caregiver, it does not constitute the state of Florida to take them into custody just because they don't have a caregiver. So we say that loosely. Any child, I don't care where you're from or what you look like, if you are unsafe and you don't have a caregiver, meaning you don't have food, you don't have clothing, you can't get to school, you can't get to the doctor, DCF is going to take that child into custody. What we have seen, and here in Circuit 2, 3 years ago there was a case where the child was familial trafficked, so her father was her trafficker. She was also a teen mother. She came from Guatemala. She spoke a dialect that Quechua, which is something that not many people ever speak, at least I learned that. DCF, she had her child in foster care, so she was pregnant when we took her into custody. Had her child in foster care, and while in foster care at a mother-baby foster home, she's a teenager with postpartum. She's a teenager in a country where no one speaks her dialect. She's a teenager in a country where she doesn't like McDonald's cheeseburgers because she doesn't eat that. She's in a country that no one speaks her language, and we expect her to behave, or we expect her to not try to run with her baby. And so what ultimately happened is we took her child from her while she was in foster care, placed with someone that wanted her to be there. It was a non-relative placement, but it was someone in the community that worked in the system. And so towards the end of the case, I got involved. Where I go with this, Kathy, is she came to a country by her parent. She spoke not a lick of English. She had a child in a country that she knew nothing about. She was taken from the one person that she did communicate with, her father. Whether it was good or bad, that's all she had. She was put in a home with people that are not the same dialect, culture. We did not respect her culture, but we expected her to respect ours. And so she stayed in foster care for 2 years before I got involved full-time in her case. We kept her in foster care and never filed her immigration paperwork for 2 years. We took her baby from her. She's about to be 18. This was several years ago. She was about to be 18. She still didn't have her child back. She was placed 2 counties away from her baby. We didn't give her visitation. We didn't help her learn English. So when I got involved, we ended up getting her attorney ad litem, who any verified victim of human trafficking gets an attorney ad litem, which is an attorney to represent just what's in the best interest of them and what they want. Not necessarily what's best for them, but what they want. And so we were able to get an attorney to meet her needs, to get her a tutor in that language of Quechua. She has since graduated high school. She opted out of extended foster care, which I was so thankful for, even though I work for DCF. She is in a program like CCYS has, a transitional living program in a different county in our region. She has her baby back, and if you ask her one thing, she says, I wish I was never in foster care. Because foster care was the detriment to her. Not her dad trafficking her, not her becoming a teen mom, but the Department of Children and Families taking her in a country that she knows nothing about. We don't try to speak to her. Law enforcement interviewed her. Dad was arrested. I don't know if it was TPD or LCSO, I can't remember. But he was sent back, so he never had to go through the prosecution. He was never adjudicated guilty. ICE picked him up, took him back, and guess what? He's been back here and had 2 other kids since. She got no justice. So I struggle when we take kids in other countries, from other countries, into custody, because I have personally seen the agency that signs my paycheck destroy a mother, a child. I mean, she was all those things. And so I think we are very cautious. What I love to do is get in contact with our partners with ORR and find host families or sponsors that speak that dialect, that may know them. These individuals work with that clientele and those language barriers on a daily basis. And I know Robin mentioned detentions. You know, when ERO or ICE is what we all know it as, takes them into custody, and especially the children, I try to put myself in their shoes as a trafficking victim, as a child, as a teen parent, or as not a teen parent. I would rather be in a detention, and I go back to my 16-year-old mentality when I was out of control, but I would rather be in a detention with 40,000 kids that I can speak to than in a big, beautiful mansion where I'm staring at the walls and no one understands what I'm saying. And I don't understand what they're saying. And I'm being forced to eat something. And I always go to this because she says, I do not like birthday cake. She likes pastries. And so that is a huge difference in their culture. And we never respected that. So we had a kid recently, Circuit 1, so Pensacola area. He was labor trafficked. I had our investigator go out and ask him. First of all, he's 17. He's just turned 17. He's been in the United States for 2 years. He spoke a little English. But ask him what he wants. Does he want to go back to home? Some of these people that are here, although they may fly over, they don't want to be here. Their parents sold them, and now they're 22 years old, stuck here. I mean, the parents sell these kids. We just had one in Leon County. A mom from Guatemala sold her 16-year-old daughter to a Guatemalan illegal immigrant here in Tallahassee, flies her over here, how we cannot figure out, flies her over here. She was sold here to him, who is an illegal alien, to be his housewife at 16 years old. She was cooking, cleaning. She was only permitted to go to the store and come back with a bicycle, and she had to have sex with him, and she had to be in love with him. And you know what? When we made contact with her, she had a stomach ache. She was terrified to talk to law enforcement. Yes, terrified to talk to us because, again, we are their enemies. I mean, we don't want them here, right? Well, it's not that. It's they don't want to be here, and we're not acknowledging that. And so the boy we just had, I had our DCF investigators in Escambia County and Okaloosa County go out and talk to him. We got a language line, which is so insensitive and not trauma-informed, but we've got this 1-800 number that speaks whatever language you want at any time of the day or night. And we asked him, where do you want to go? Both of his parents had already been deported. He said, I don't want to be here. ERO, it's quick. They send him back. But if we would have sheltered him, just because he didn't have a caregiver, he would have never seen his family again. And when he's 18, we're opening the door of whatever foster home they're at. And they are not an American citizen at that point.
Just kick them out.
Literally.
Yeah.
And it's horrific and it's terrible. And we fought for the teenage mom that was here that we got that's now in Panama City at that transitional living program, because although they opened the doors at 18 and booted her, we said, oh no, we've been working here too long with this kid. Like, oh no, she's not going anywhere. And we worked as a community and as a panel, or however you want to look at it, to make sure she was successful. And so, does she struggle? Absolutely. Does she say some days she wants to go home? All the time. And home to her is not the United States.
I was just going to say that, we've hosted some of the kids who are here, and it's the same kind of thing. Their parents, you say sold. Some of them will say, that, or my parents worked really hard to get me here. That's the other perspective. Their parents paid a lot of money to get them here. Or, we hosted a young man and who was here, and he was great. Because they send money back to their families. And so it's very complicated, but again, it's something that anyone could get involved in because he just needed a respite. Really, that young man, and there's a couple other young women who we did short-term host families, just that open, it's a family because they do come from a very family-oriented culture, and so that's more comfortable. And for most of the kids we've hosted, it is, they're 17, just need to get them to 18, they're working with other agencies, and they just need a safe place to land for a little while. So.
And I think that's what's hard too. And what's so amazing about Kathy and her program is once we take them into foster care, so when I say we, DCF, when a child comes into custody, we have 24 hours to notify a judge and to be in front of a judge because every parent and every child, whether they're in the United States or not, have rights. And so once they come into custody and there's a judge's stamp or signature on that shelter petition, there's no undoing it without a case plan. There's no undoing it without a home study. And so we end up, they may just need to be here for a couple weeks till we can get them a plane ticket. Well, guess what? The judge is not going to release the shelter petition for a 16 or a 17-year-old to get on a plane and go to another country and only go God knows where. So we end up in a sticky situation. I would rather not take them into custody at all and work with communities and say, we just need, Delta will fly any verified victim of trafficking anywhere in the world for free. So we will find a way. There is no answer that should ever have a no. Or I can't do it. So all of our kids, and I heard somebody say earlier, it's easier for law enforcement in DC. It's harder for us to make relationships because we're on to the next case. But I've been doing this since 2012. Every child or parent that has come across my desk, whether they're a victim of whatever or whatnot, they're not getting rid of me. So I might have 20 more cases come along after them, but we have to have a victim-centered approach, and we have to buy in. And we always say they need to buy into us, right? We got to get them to agree to this foster home. No, you need to get the foster home to agree to this child. You need to get the transitional home to buy into this woman who deserves it. We are here to help them. And so in these trafficking cases with these victims, they don't want help, right? They don't want this. And so, Kathy, I heard you guys, this was a full moon this week. So y'all had some ruckus, so did we.
So did we.
When the full moon comes around, those of us that work with these victims, I had a mom today. She's a verified victim of trafficking here in Leon County. Her child is also a verified victim of trafficking. LCSO is working very closely with her. And she called me screaming and cussing, and I hate you, and you're DCF, and this and that. And I said, hold on a minute. Okay, let's regroup. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not hanging up on you. Like, you can cuss me out. So buying into them and their needs and sticking with them. Rachel's group of detectives, one of them, he follows these women around like a lost dog, and I love it. And I've never seen that in law enforcement, and I've worked very closely with law enforcement for many years. My brother-in-law was the major in Panama City, so it's in my blood too. Their unit is incredible with these women and children, incredible. Rachel's been chasing a kid for
Let me ask a question, because I would rather do this, honestly. These questions are great, but I feel beholden to at least ask a couple more questions because we have about 20 minutes left, in case that's helpful, huh? Yeah, oh, I know, I do. I have a couple of questions that I think they would, if I were sitting there, there would be a question that I would have. And one question that I would have what are some signs that we should look for? Because we talked earlier about the TikTok and the videos of it ties on handles and things. So what should we look for? Because I assume you want to be prepared and be able to help someone, right? What would we look for? What is a real sign?
Rachel, you got to do this one.
So, well, I
Yes.
was about to say it's gonna differ.
Either one.
We'll start with kids. So, in the law enforcement world, we have what we probably never should have dubbed this, but chronic runaways, right? It's the same kids that pop up, and you get the address. You're being dispatched to the house. You're rolling your eyes as you go because you're like, this is the 14th time I've taken a missing kid report for this kid, and they're going to show back up before I even finish the paperwork. And we've had to change our way of looking at it because if they're running from something or running to something. And so having to ask ourselves why the difficult kid is being difficult.
Yeah.
No, it's never correct. Let me say that. It's not never. Majority of the time, it's never correct. Before I was promoted and into the position I'm in now and all of that, I spent almost 5 years in school resource at our alternative middle and high school, which looking back now probably shaped me to take the position I'm in now. So kind of cool how that works out. But I always loved my problem kids. I liked the kids that no one else liked. I liked the kids that were really difficult, and were they difficult. They were just bad. The kids that were coming to school with ankle monitors on because they had committed a shooting the week before. Like, those were my kids. And they were still kids, and I always argued that they were kids with adult problems.
Yeah.
And so the kids that are falling prey to trafficking are the same kids. And so if you're watching those kids and you're like, this kid is just terrible. Like, I don't understand what the issue is. Dig a little bit deeper. The kid who does not come from money and all of a sudden has a brand new cell phone. I am also a mom of a teenager and I don't know if he's old enough to be a preteen, but almost a preteen, but a teenage daughter, and like her Instagram stays logged in on my phone. I go through her phone randomly, but constantly, and she knows it. And so I always urge parents and myself and my HSI counterpart spend a lot of time going to churches and talking to parents about like how to help their kids and keep their kids from doing god-awful things and whatnot. One of the things I say is it's like there's no shame in being a parent and not being the friend. And I'm going to be on my daughter's back. And so I think with kids, it's looking for those signs of problems and start asking questions. And it's hard, right? Sometimes it's easier not to ask those questions because sometimes you don't want those answers.
Yeah.
But you got to ask those questions. And as far as adults, general and public, just start looking around you. Who's working at businesses? Do they seem like they, don't have control of the interactions they have with you? If you're asking a question and someone else is answering that question for them, it raises an eyebrow, right? Someone on the panel said if they're sleeping in their restaurant or they're sleeping in the business, if you're in your neighborhood and you're like, there's 72 people living in that 3-bedroom house and it's not cultural, generational, familial, right? It raises an eyebrow. And so we always tell people, especially with my unit, and before we leave, I wasn't joking when I said I'm on call 24/7, 365. The guy in the marine shirt's my husband, he can tell you this. My phone doesn't go off. It just doesn't turn off ever. And so if there's a thing and you're like, I don't know what I'm seeing, but something just doesn't feel right, call us. Shoot me a text message, call me. I tell our law enforcement, like patrol guys, because they're not 100% comfortable in this world, call me. I'd rather come out and it be nothing than it be something that you missed, because I can think back over an almost 20-year career and go, I think I missed some things early in my career. So it's not always like going to wave a flag like, oh, this is trafficking. It's going to be something that doesn't feel right to you. In a business you go in a hotel you go in and I'm gonna caution you because it's very easy to now go into every place and be like, I wonder if they're being trafficked, because we all do it. Like we all do it. Where I'm like, that doesn't quite look right. It's probably nothing like it, but I can't help it anymore. And so just keeping eyes open, I think, and recognizing things that kind of seem out of the ordinary.
In our teen population, what we're seeing, and I would say for risk factors, obviously not attending school was huge, like Gwen said. Criminal charges. I can't tell you how many kids I've seen with the minute they have contact with law enforcement, they're getting arrested for resisting arrest without violence. I mean, it is constant. They're getting petty theft charges. They're getting domestic battery charges on their parents. It's over and over. We are seeing kids in our region right here, in this, I'll say from Panama City to Tallahassee, the youngest kid we have right now that is verified victim of trafficking is 10, and she was using methamphetamine. Substances are key now. These kids don't even know they're using methamphetamine. They go to school, they get their vape, and I know everybody rolls their eyes at this. I have a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old.
Okay.
And every one of my kids, we have a very open conversation. If you're gonna vape, I need to know about it. You're not gonna be in trouble, but I need to see it. I need to assess it. If you're gonna smoke weed, there are dispensaries. I'm not condoning it, but we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna find what that looks like versus what street weed looks like or smells like. So you have to really educate, because these kids are using. One time we have a mom in Panama City, 19 years old, pregnant. She her teenage years, documented marijuana use. She gets pregnant, her OB is supporting the marijuana use. She's a tiny little thing to eat and all the things. And she was 8.5 months pregnant. She used marijuana, which she got from someone that was a source that she knew, and she died because it was laced with fentanyl immediately, and they had to deliver her baby that is still alive with no parent.
Yeah, it's real.
And that's in Panama City. So we see this all the time, the overdoses we see in the schools. So trying to think about trafficking, drugs, runaway youth. Kids don't run away.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, they're not reported missing, and their parent doesn't care. Tattooing, we see it nonstop now. These poke and stick tattoos, none of y'all have them. Y'all's look good. But the jailhouse tattoos that we used to call them, I see. Yeah, I mean, these kids they're tattooing each other. We see boys' names or girls' names on their body, on their neck, on their forehead, on their eye. I mean, it is nonstop now. Tattoos are the next best thing, but mainly when they're trafficking victims, it's going to be stars, halos, crowns, money bags, names, little dots. There's these 3 little dots. It was an ancient Roman something back in the day. We've seen it twice now, once in Panama City and once in Jacksonville. It's 3 dots. And it means loyalty, love, and then you are the 3rd dot is you're a child and you've identified you're a victim of trafficking, or you're in the life, so to speak. So it's the 3 dots, and we've seen that a lot. I would say teen parenting or teen pregnancy. There are kids that get pregnant as teenagers. My sister was one of them. But looking beyond that, when we do have a lot of law enforcement calls or DCF calls, or their parents in and out of jail, like, what does that teen parent look like? Why are they pregnant? And I'm not saying every case is trafficking, but the majority that we're seeing now are. And so supporting that teen mom where she is, keeping her baby with her, because if not, you end up with dropouts and drug abuse and things like that. So a lot of signs that we're seeing now are much more open, and do not let your kids.
Robin, real quick, and then I'm going to see if we get some questions from people
Yeah,
here.
I wanted to give you all some tangible resources you can take home.
I'll address that one.
Okay,
I
and
got that one in there.
this is signs of human trafficking in youth. In answer to your question, there's some more
Oh, thank you.
articulated here that include, loss of interest in things, frequent tardiness, working in excessive amount, having rehearsed responses, and things like that. So,
Awesome. And you have that back at the table.
Yes.
And so when we get done, there are resource tables back here that I would hope that you would go back and connect with them. Are there questions that you all have that we haven't already covered? We have probably 30 other questions on this paper that we haven't gotten to. Yes, Patty? If we do see things that we're suspicious of, this is for the recording, sorry. Let me ask a question real quick. If we do see things that we're suspicious of, where do we go to report that? And go.
So in the last 2 years, DCF has made a statewide human trafficking webpage. On the back table back here, like Robin shared with their flyers with signs, there's signs back there, but there's also a little cutout with 3 websites on it. DCF has now created what I call a human trafficking community tool that you can answer these questions. There's like 15 questions with yes and no. And if you answer enough yes versus no, it's going to prompt you to make a report to DCF. And then law enforcement, it gives you all the connects, who to call, who to do what with, and how. And then there's a parent toolkit, and then a social media thing. So everything now, you call 911 or 1-800-96-ABUSE or STAG.
Well, I think that it kind of also depends. If it's an emergency situation, if it's an emergent, and you feel someone's in danger, there's absolutely no question you call 911. If you suspect that a child or a vulnerable adult is being trafficked, then we're all mandatory reporters to call DCF. If you don't know, and these are the kinds of questions I get. I was at Village Inn the other day, and it looked like something was going on between this guy and this woman, and I kept thinking maybe it's trafficking, but I'm not sure. And they were getting ready to pay their check. What do I do? Those are the kinds of questions that I don't know about calling 911. You could. If it's an emergent situation and you had some indications. It might be a domestic violence situation if it's a intimate partner violence. And you know, all these situations can be very, very nuanced. That's why it's important for you to get as educated as you can about what the signs are, so that if you do see something, you have more assurance and kind of confidence yourself that, that you can take action that's safe. We also see that calls to law enforcement are important when there might be something going down, and I think Rachel would tell you to start, you know, if you can surreptitiously take a picture, take down identifying information for them. For us, sometimes it's not a law enforcement situation yet. You're not sure. I've had people call me and say, you know, there's a house with extra folks in it that I don't understand. What should I be looking for? And I'll talk them through, look for this, look for that. And it's a kind of pattern of activity that you want people to understand. So sometimes it's calling the National Human Trafficking Hotline if you know something is going down, and the number's on the back. We've got lots of information in the back. And sometimes you can call us. We don't have a hotline at STAC, but we have a warm line. So we're not available 24/7. Gotta sleep, Rachel. All respect to you on that. But you can call us and just talk through situations, and our phone number is back there too. So it kind of depends on the situation, but I would say take action, do something. Sometimes people want to say, oh, I don't think it's anything. And then they come back to me and say, this has haunted me now for years that I didn't do something.
I had a young lady, a parishioner, I heard a story actually this week where she was at the store, and she was at like Target or Kohl's or one of those box stores, and there was a man hovering over a woman and picking all the clothes out, and she came out and modeled, and he ended up going into the dressing room with her, and she felt there was something wrong, and so she did make the call.
Good.
And then followed them out and made some descriptions. I don't know if you caught that. That was.
So Miss Julie called me on that one, and then I had made sure that patrol was sending someone out to it. So I was going to say, we get all sorts of like Crime Stopper tips. We've had a doctor call and go, hey, this seemed a little odd. I had a patient come in. I'm not violating patient, confidentiality. However, erase some red flags. Can you look into it? So Crime Stoppers is always an option. I wasn't joking. I'm literally going to give you guys my cell phone number. And like I said, the sheriff pays me to be on call 24/7, 365. So I will, anyone that wants it, when we're done, I will be in the back of the room. I will happily give it to you. And it will be, it doesn't matter what time it is. I'm answering a phone. So, and it may be a conversation of like, hey, let me take the information down and tomorrow we'll look into it. Or it may be something that I'm like, no, one of my detectives is coming out tonight. So it just depends. You can always call 911. You can also call the non-emergency number to the dispatch center if you think it doesn't rise to the level of emergency. If you don't know that number, just call 911. No one's going to yell at you for calling 911. And if they do, let me know, because we'll deal with that too. But so just report it. If you want to call STAC and talk through and see what you've got, great. If you think it rises to the level of letting law enforcement look into it, call us. I'm not going to speak for any other law enforcement agency, but I can speak for my own. We're never going to be upset at you for calling us and giving us something to look into. So.
Any other questions that you might have that are bubbling up? You will be available to talk to folks afterwards as well. Anyone have any questions that we need to get recorded? Yes, Julie. There's one on the list. You like this? You want this one? You this one asked. Oh, yeah. Do children have to leave their bedrooms? That was like yes or no. Do children have to leave their bedrooms? I can answer this one. Do children have to leave their bedrooms to be sex trafficked? No. Okay, so thank you. No. Talk about this. Who else wants to talk about that?
So why don't they, though? They're not going anywhere. No one in their bedroom is touching them.
Yeah, well, that's a great. Well, let me just put on my hat for a second because we have children have access to the computer, and so you can be manipulated. You took a photo of me, and now I'm going to turn this over to other people and expose you.
Okay, you just said that.
What's that?
You just said something that struck me. So I have a 17-year-old son. We live in Panama City. He's a normal, average kid. He's normal. He's basic. I call him, he drives a truck with mud tires and all that. So he's your basic kid. His best friend lives down the road from us. We live in Southport, which is a smaller rural subset of Panama City. And all the boys have grown up together. They're all in, their school is a K through 12, so everybody knows everybody, right? So his friend's mother and I are also friends, and she does not work in this career field, but she knows what I do and knows that I'm very open in conversation. So for all intents and purposes, the kid's name is Dylan, and that is his name, and his mother has always given me permission to share this story because it's my personal life, not work. So Dylan is 17. Dylan is cute, baseball, flippy hair, the kids call him Wings now. He's all the things, and super bubbly, charismatic, fun, plays football, average kid, whatever. So he is on Instagram, and boys, I swear. So he's on Instagram, and this incident happens over 3 hours. From the time he meets a girl on Instagram who lives, quote unquote, on Panama City Beach, right? We live 15 minutes over the bridge, so we're the in-town kids, they're the beach kids. And so he meets this cute girl on Instagram, 3 hours. They're liking each other's posts, they're doing all this. He is so into her, he sends a picture of his penis to her. Because they're gonna meet at the beach later, I guess. I don't know what the conversation was. And she asked for the picture of him. So it's not like he just randomly sent a picture of his penis. She asked for it. A 17, 15, 16-year-old girl. And I'm thinking, how stupid. So within 3 hours, after he sends that photo, he gets a text message that says, send me $300. And he says, no. Now, mind you, he comes from a single mom household. They don't have a lot of money. She works. They're average, right? But he's like, no. Fortunately, he has a friend group like my son and parents around that are very open, because he says, no, I'm not sending you $300. And he sends some few choice words. And then the person replies back, if you don't do it within 15 minutes, your mom's gonna see your penis. Well, they used an other word than that. Now, this is just a 16-year-old girl on the beach or whatever, supposedly still. And so Dylan says some few choice words and, no. His mom immediately received his nude penis photo. And then when he was asked for money again, he didn't send it. Within 3 hours, the entire Bozeman High School had his photo. Everyone on his Instagram had his nude photo. And thankfully, by the grace of God, he's got some wit to him, because instead of telling his mom, oh no, or being embarrassed or shy or scared, he told the truth. The sheriff's office got involved, and the IP address was not in the United States. But this same situation happened a year and a half prior with a kid in New York, same age, star football player, with a girlfriend, 2-parent household, everything, and within 3 hours he had committed suicide because he did not have a relationship with his parents that he felt comfortable enough to admit that he had given a nude photo. So we are also seeing online exploitation is significantly dangerous. Not getting killed, by your trafficker, but taking your own life.
Yeah.
Just one more thing that has popped up recent. AI photos have become a thing.
Oh, dang.
So we've had a couple cases here locally. Girl takes a photo in a cute shirt and shorts in the mirror. She sends it to whoever, and that photo is now AI changed to be a nude photo with her face, and then gets distributed. And so there is so much, and technology and phones and all of it, to where I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out here, and I'm sorry for the teenagers that are in the room. Snapchat will never step foot in it will never appear in my house. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I begrudgingly let my child have Instagram with the understanding that I'm monitoring it. We don't do Discord. We don't do TikTok. We don't, none of it. Now, is she happy about it? No, she'll be 16 in April. She's not happy about it. And it's very much, you're this way because of your job. Yeah, well, probably a little bit. Sorry. And so the photo thing is a big deal. I cannot tell you, for my detectives that specialize specifically in internet crimes against children, how many open cases we have right now of nude photos and I cannot believe I'm saying this in church, sex tapes that are floating around high schools, of students in the high schools, and then one of the parties in the relationship gets mad, and now it's been airdropped to the entire cafeteria, or one party didn't know that it was being filmed, and the next thing they know, it's being shared on Instagram. Or we've got one case where she's now an adult, but she found photos of herself when she was a minor on porn sites. And so, the thing that I harp with my own kid, and that I harp with anyone that I talk to, is once these photos are out there, you can't get them back.
Yeah.
You can't control where they go. Once you send them to someone, I don't care how much you love them, you can't control where those photos are going. And so it's a cautionary tale. I don't believe in scare tactics, but I do believe in being brutally honest. And it's astounding to me the number of cases that my ICAC, my Internet Crimes Against Children detectives have on their caseload right now that are involving pictures and videos that were self-created but then have gotten out of control. So it's just something to kind of keep an eye on in your own households with your own kids. Talk to your kids about it. Again, my 15-year-old hears it a lot. She probably hears more than she needs to sometimes, where I'm harping, and I do talk to them about cases without giving specifics to where she knows anything, but because they are cautionary tales of please don't make these mistakes, because sometimes you can't come back from these.
And I will tell you, the kids are so addicted to these phones that we have so many kids that will run from our shelter because we will hold them their phone. We don't allow their phones, and that's exactly why, because they are getting into trouble. And why we all think we've got to post all of our photos about everything we do on the internet, we need to think long and hard about it, especially our kids. Because the kids that are vulnerable are attached to those cell phones. And many times it's because someone is luring them to use their phone to do things that are going to get them in trouble.
I want to thank our panelists tonight for coming. This has, first of all, been super rich. I have to watch my language because there are things that I want to say, but I'm in church, so I also can't say them. But I appreciate you. No, for real. But I appreciate you all. I say them anyway, and I get in trouble, but I don't care. I appreciate you being here because, and my only regret this evening is that the room is not packed. That's my only regret because, again, I have 4 daughters. My wife and I have had frank conversations with our children. We've fostered 22 kids. We've lived this life, and so it's here for me, and I wish there were more people who were here to hear this, to understand this. I also believe in the power of prayer. We have a 31-day daily prayers against human trafficking. You can pick this up in the back if you don't have a copy of this. It's pretty simple. Again, the beautiful thing about being Anglican is you don't have to come up with the words. You can just read them. You don't have I don't know what to pray. It's okay. We wrote it down for you. And this is a nice segue. I rode one once in Orlando. We have a closing prayer here, and I will read it. You can read it silently. I will read it out loud. Almighty God, you created us in your own image. Grant us grace to contend fearlessly against evil and to make no peace with oppression. And help us to use our freedom rightly in the establishment of justice in our communities and among the nations, to the glory of your holy name, through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Thank you again. You guys give a hand to our panelists. Can I get a photo with you all real quick for our social media?